Hi, welcome to the Mom of Many podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Ma. And today we're going to be talking about young adult children and leaving the nest. Hi, welcome to the Mom of Many podcast. I'm going to start off today by reading a letter from a listener, an email from a listener. And here it goes. Dear Tammy Ma, my 21-year-old college student currently lives at home. She'll be graduating soon and doesn't seem to be in a hurry to move out and live on her own. She follows our rules and we enjoy having her, but I wonder if it's in her best interest. Do you have a thought on when it's time to kick the kids out of the nest? Okay. Thank you so much. That was a great question. I appreciate it. So I have a few thoughts on this. Growing, being in another culture in Asia for the past 23 years, one thing I loved about the culture that I was in is that kids were not forced to move out. I mean, not they're forced, but the kids are not expected, forced, and or nor do they expect it themselves to kind of move out at 18 years old. In that culture, there's a sense of family interdependence, and so it was rare that you would find an 18-year-old who did not live at home or a 19-year-old who did not live at home. It's very rare. And so a lot of times, people kind of feel sorry for those. Oh gosh, you're not living at home and you're 19. Like, oh my goodness. And so there's a sense of shock and kind of feeling empathy for those that didn't get to live at home when they were 18 or 19. And so one thing I loved about the culture was that they do have a sense of um, family interdependence. They have a sense of um, really kind of still considering 18 and 19-year-olds as in growth and still learning and in the student stage of life and not necessarily as full-fledged adults. Um, and so I don't know. I wish that maybe we would kind of adopt some of those same mentality here in the U.S. I think that having this mindset in our culture, not just in our families, but in our culture, that when the child's 18, they're suddenly an adult and they can do whatever they want and they can do. There's no consequences and they can there's a lot of pushback and a lot of almost like rebellion that happens around that age. Although they don't call it rebellion because they think it's just them being an adult. Um, I don't know. I wish we could just adopt some of this idea as a culture that we're still growing at 18 and 19 and 20. And so I think I've read studies where they say that, your brain is continually developing and growing even up into the age of 24 and 25. And so I think we can make a case for at least 21 if we wanted to. So personally, I would love to see a culture where we do um, kind of look at young people that way. They should be more independent. Yeah, they're growing, and yeah, they don't need to be treated like 15-year-olds, but at the same time, they're not quite there yet. And so, I'm a fan of that kind of culture. I'm a fan of having your kids kind of stay with you as long as they can and want to and cooperate. So we'll kind of gotta look and break this question down a little bit. Um, with the understanding that I'm coming from a culture where I've spent raising kids where we did not kick out our kids at 18. We did not ask them to leave home just because of an arbitrary number, 1-8. For us, it was a matter of like getting them equipped, getting them kind of settled. Whether some of them would get married, some of them would finish college, some of them would maybe go and join some kind of job, a career, something like that. So our mindset was to help our kids get settled in a career or life in some way before they leave home. But we don't just do it blindly. We have some ideas and expectations, and so um, the fact that you're enjoying your daughter and that she's 21 and you don't mind her living at home is great, and that she's kind of following your rules. That's great. So I'm going to give you my general idea first, and then I'll kind of answer the question specifically about your daughter. So the general idea for me is that you can allow your kids to be at home. I think it's a great time to save. I tell all of my kids, even they stay home. They stay with us through college, and our college is nearby, and they can actually walk to it. And so they stay home and they live at home. And basically, we tell them, hey, you can stay at home as long as you need to save money. The only things I require from you is that you're an active part of our family. It's not that you can just opt out of all family stuff just because you turned 18. And so if you're going to live at home and you're going to take advantage of, free food and free housing, especially as a college student, and you're taking advantage of all the things that we want to bless you with, and we're happy to do it, but your part is this: you're an active part of our family. You don't get to opt out just because you're 18. And then and that includes in every way. Family comes first, family activities, but it has to do with even just helping out. You can't just like all of a sudden you don't have to do chores anymore because you're 18. Like absolutely not. It's just we're just keeping on going. So for me, they need to follow the rules. They need to be an active part of the family. They have to help out at home as an active part of family. And I would also say if they're going to college, that their job is they need to work part time and earn a little money to take care of their personal stuff. Like I wouldn't necessarily give them money in their hands. They need to go earn it. But I'd also give them more freedom than I would give a 16-year-old. And so an 18-year-old, doesn't necessarily have to come home at 9 o'clock at night or something like that, but an 18-year-old doesn't. For us and the culture that I'm coming from, we also had expectations. So it wasn't just like you couldn't come home one night. No, that's not fair to the people that you live with. That's not fair. I would never do it to my kids, just not come home one night, and neither can they do it to me. And so that's not going to happen. And so there's expectations of them calling and let us know where they're at, where they're going to be, who they're with, what time they're going to be home, and open communication. Those are all really clear expectations that we have with our kids. Um, so we have no problem with them, and we also have no problem with them staying at home even after they graduate for a little while. And so I've let most of my kids stay at home after they graduated. Usually for about 6 months was a minimum, and some of them stayed 2. Some of them stayed 2 years after graduating. But the reason I did that was I would tell them, this is your time to earn money. You have to work a full time job, and it all has to go into savings. And you can't. It's not about buying devices and toys and gadgets and clothes and shopping. Or you have to save for a specific goal. It might be a new car. For us, it's motorcycles, but it might be a motorcycle. It might be a laptop. It might be you might be wanting to go for your master's degree, and you're going to pay. We've paid for your college. Now it's time for you to pay for your master's. It could be any of those things, but there has to be a clearly defined goal. The money has to be kept in savings, and we have to see it, not just by it's their word, they're keeping it. I want to see it with my own eyes. I want to see how much you're saving every month. We don't care if they may not save every dime they earn, but they need to save a vast majority of the money they earn. It has to be saved for a specific goal. And then the other caveat I would give to that is that they would need to be following all of our rules. There's no opting out of family stuff. There's no opting out of family jobs, helping out around home. If it's cleanup day at our home and it's time to go out in the yard and clean up all the yard, then and you're living at home and I don't care if you're 18, 19, 20 or 6, you get out there and you help. And that's what we do. And so there can't be any kind of like, I'm an adult now, I don't need to do this stuff. And so what I typically do is when I start seeing those attitudes come up, like resistance and like them being fed up with having to do more around the house, them being fed up with our rules and our expectations, them showing any kind of pushback in attitude or disrespect or the way they treat their parents in any way. Like if that's coming through, then that's when the countdown starts. And so for me, it's always been like a 6-month countdown. And I'll even tell the guys, hey, you know what? I've had this conversation with my kids. I love you. You're awesome. I think you might want to think about moving out. I think you might need to start thinking about, where you can go and a place to go and your budget and how can I help you and, keep saving for that. And I'll even tell them, you clearly are having a hard time living at home. It probably is best for you to go out and find your freedom and to go ahead and I very lovingly tell them it's time to go. It's time to move out. It's not kicking them out of the nest. It's allowing them to like have the freedom that they're longing for. And so some of our kids were perfectly content to stay at home and they were wanting to stay too long. So in those cases, I've had to have a hard talk and say, you know what, I think that like, I kind of feel like what this letter says, is it in her best interest? If they're overly shy or overly insecure or overly fearful of the world and the different thing, then that's it can be a disservice to stay at home too long. It is healthy for them to go out and learn to like stand on their own 2 feet and make their own friends and not rely on And another thing that happens, I just want to tell this to everybody who has had adult kids leave. I have seen my adult kids leave at 19 when they join. Like some of them have joined YWAM at 19 or 20, and I've seen some of them leave at 21 after they or 22 after they finish college. I've seen some kids leave at 23, and um, I'm really, really always thankful when they leave. Not because I don't love them and not because I can't, it's just that I see something change in most of them. I mean, most of them mature and most of them start becoming a lot more thankful and grateful. And my relationship with them has improved and seems to improve over time, over them once they leave home. Especially if they leave on a good note. Obviously you don't want any of our kids to leave on a bad note, but there's a sense of like thankfulness, a sense of like, man, I miss home. Gosh, I love family nights. I love family movie nights. And oh man, my family's chicken biryani is the best on the planet, or whatever. And so there's a sense of like missing you, and your relationship can actually improve when you finally let them go. And so I'd also encourage you to look inwardly and say, is there any needs that I'm getting met as a parent by having my 21-year-old child at home? Am I getting some emotional needs met? Is there any kind of thing inside of me that's being met by having them at home? And so, and because I still feel needed and I don't feel lonely and it's not empty nest yet. And there's all kinds of things, are we getting any needs met by our kids being at home? And so these are all things to juggle. And I don't know if this made perfect sense, but so to cap it off or to recap, I would say something like, it's fine. Um, if you're fine and they're fine, everything is going well. There's no rule that says they have to be out at 18 or 19 or 20 years old. Having a 21-year-old with you going to college, living at home is not the end of the world. It's not crazy. But if the child has a poor attitude or relationship, your relationship with them is suffering in some way, and there's some kind of like pushback and resistance, then you got to you got to reevaluate and look at ways to lovingly let them go. And I would say that if it's hampering their social development or their confidence levels or self-esteem or affecting them socially in some ways, and I think it would be a good sign to let them go as well, to encourage them to go. And so it's important not to say it in a way it's going to be hurtful, but at the same time to say it in a way which is going to sound freeing, like uh, we love you, so proud of all the steps that you've made, and I can't wait to see what God does with your life. Like I know it's time to start thinking about what are you going to do next. Like you know, um, we love you. We want to see you accomplish whatever God has. What do you think it is? How can we help you? I know you're going to be thinking about moving out soon. Obviously, you just kind of like make an assumption. You don't even have to like. So they kind of almost think it's their idea, and they'll be like, "What?" But they might be like, "Yeah." But so I know you've been thinking about moving out. I'm sure you have, as every 21-year-old on the planet. How can we help you achieve that goal? Have you thought about apartments? Have you thought about roommates? So what's the plan? And so we're kind of thinking, and you just go into a conversation. Your dad and I have been talking. We've been thinking that we'd like to help you with a 6 month plan to get independence because we know it's so important for young people at your age to get independence. And so we've been talking about a 6 month plan. How does that sound? Would what are you thinking? And then just began the conversation. And then if they're a little bit hesitant, I've been surprised that some of my kids. I thought if I say that to them, they're gonna feel so hurt. They're not gonna want to move out. And they're like super happy to move out. And what kid isn't happy to move out? Even the ones that get along great with their families, even the ones who we love having them around because they're fun and they're easy. And at the end of the day, all of our kids want independence, and some of them don't know they want it, and some of them know they want it, but they all actually need it, and it's all good for them. So I hope it's been helpful. I definitely am not a fan of. I'm a fan of letting them be kids and letting them be young and giving them help and helping them in different ways. And I'm a fan of like the Western Eastern culture of letting them be kids a little bit longer. But I'm not a fan of enabling kids or being codependent or getting our needs met or um, keeping them from actually achieving their best because they're at home. So there's a fine balance in all those things, and I've messed up on both sides. I've messed up on both sides where I thought a child was ready to move out on their own, and they weren't, and I thought a child was more than ready, and I thought the child wasn't ready, and they were more than ready to move out. So every kid is different, every personality is different, but I hope this helps in some ways. So um, let me know if it's been helpful to you, and I can talk more about young adult kids if that's something you guys want to talk about. Young adult, your children, and how to handle and navigate those years and those relationships. I'm really happy to help. I really, really love my young adult children. They are the joy of my life. I enjoy them. I enjoy their personalities. Many of them have become friends to me and have been fun to hang out with, and somebody I would, legitimately just enjoy spending time with. And so that's one of the best things about our young adults is when they enter into that stage. And so I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if it has. And yeah, I'll see you next time. And before I go, we have a um, mom fell, which we're gonna do now. So today's mom fell is, I guess it's actually kind of a mom fell and a automatism at the same time. So I hope that makes sense. So I was able to adopt my youngest legally, and during the adoption process, she was probably about 10 years old. The lawyer called me at one time and said, "Hey, she can name she can give herself a middle name if she wants to, or you can give her a middle name if you want to. She has a first name, and her last name is obviously going to be yours. And so, if you'd like to give her a middle name, let me know what that is, and just send me an email in the next hour, and I'm going to put it on the certificate." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." And I was thinking about what kind of middle name would I like to give her. I didn't even realize I would have that. I didn't even think about it. And so, but then I decided when she's 10, let me call her over and let her pick her own middle name because she's 10 years old. It's not like, a 3-year-old picking her middle name, princess or something. So she came over and I said, "Hey, Autumn, you get to pick your middle name, your legal middle name. What would you like it to be?" And she goes, "Oh, I know exactly what I would like it to be." And I was like, "Well, what?" And she said, "Sarah." And I was just so proud of her. And I was actually bursting with pride because we had just had this devotional time that week. Twice that week we had done devotions. We talked about Abraham and Sarah and talked about believing God, and I was just so like touched that she had chosen the name Sarah after my devotion, of course, and after Sarah in the Bible. Being a great Bible teacher and leader and really honestly, missionary. So so I wrote back to him and I was like, okay, she's chosen the name Sarah. So he put that on her birth certificate. And then after a couple minutes, I was like, "Oh, how did you get that?" Or I told somebody, "Oh, she chose the name Sarah after Abraham and Sarah," and she just stopped me and she said, "No, I didn't." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I didn't choose the name Sarah after Abraham's wife." And I said, "Well, who? What? We just talked about that this week." She said, "I don't remember that. I chose the name Sarah because it's my favorite TV show. It's my favorite character on the TV show." And I said, "Well, what character?" She said, "Well, it's a vampire on the TV show. My babysitter's a vampire." I was like, "Don't ever tell anybody this story." I said, "Okay, don't you tell anybody. For all intents and purposes, your names came from Sarah in the Bible." And she laughed and she said, "No, it didn't. It came from a vampire." And so that's my automatisms and my parent fell all wrapped into one. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.